Online daters who've been a victim of catfishing, how did you find out that they were lying? Twice. Both times they were underage, but led me to believe that they were the same age I was. The first time, it was a girl who sent me pictures of her older sister who was around my age. When we finally met for our first date, I realized that she was not the girl from the pictures because she was barely 18 and was enormous compared to the girl I had pictures of. She was apologetic and explained that she sent me pictures of her sister instead of herself for various reasons. The lie about her age was only a slight problem because she had just turned 18 days before, so I wasn't in any legal danger. We remained friends for years. The second time was the last time I'd tried to meet a girl online. I was a junior in college and had been talking to this girl a few states away for weeks. She claimed to be 19. I was 20, and she was a cute redhead in the pics that she sent me, so I chatted her up regularly, even though she lived far away. At some point, she surprises me with her plan to take a bus out to my university and spend the weekend hanging out and partying with me. When I picked her up at the bus stop, I barely recognized her. She sort of looked like the cute redhead I had pictures of. But way younger, like she could be the daughter of the girl I had been talking to online. I played it cool, trying to be a gentleman, but quickly decided that spending the weekend partying with what appears to be a 14 to 16-year-old would be a bad idea. I told her that there were no good parties on the docket and took her home to my parents' house, where I figured we could lay low until Sunday, when I could shuffle her back onto a bus and be rid of the jailbait. Well, late the next evening, while we were sitting on the living room floor watching a movie with my parents, the phone rings. I answered the phone to hear a crying woman pleading to know where her daughter was and if she is okay. That's when it hit me. I was harboring a freaking teenage runaway. I got the girl on the phone with her mom and started grabbing all of her stuff and putting it in my car. Apparently, her mom had found my phone number on their phone bill and traveled to my school looking for her daughter. I promised to meet her on campus with her daughter ASAP. Well, we didn't even make it out of the driveway before the police car showed up. The cop looked at me, then pointed to the girl and said, "Is that her?" And I replied, "Yeah, take her home, man." And that was it. Luckily for me, I think this girl may have had a history of running away from home because they didn't ask me a single question or anything. They just took the girl and left. Then my mom came out into the driveway, asking why the cops were there. Oh boy, I had some splaining to do. And then when I returned to school, all of my classmates and neighbors told me that the campus police, local police, and state police had been scouring the campus for me and an underage runaway. Yeah, I spent the next couple of weeks explaining to everyone I knew how I got hoodwinked by an internet girl and that the police had the story wrong. It could have gone worse, I suppose. Update. On a whim, I googled the teenage runaway's name and the state she came from. I never even had the urge until this, sharing the story with everyone on Reddit. The first article that popped up was a picture of her, and it mentioned she graduated high school in the class of 99. I was in the class of 96, so it appears that I was only about 3 years older than her. I was 20 at the time, so she must have been 16 or 17, which would have been perfectly legal in the state I reside in, although morally I may have been leaning towards all wrong. She looks very happy in the pic I saw, and I hope she is. Whoa, I've never done any online dating, and I've also never considered that minors could be catfishing you. Sheesh. Stay safe out there, people, okay? Do your due diligence on the people you're talking to as best as you can. Or, just try and shoot like 10 years above your own age. Last resort, but, safety net. Good luck to you, online daters! Next story. My ex-boyfriend met a girl on WoW who lives in Texas. He lives in the Midwest. They talked for many months via WoW and email, but never via video chat. He told his parents about her as things were getting more serious, and they agreed to let her visit and stay at their house for a week, so he and her could meet in person. The flight was bought for her, they discussed how excited they were to meet, and then the night before the flight, she admitted that she was actually a 19-year-old gay guy. People who do catfish, not that you're probably going to out yourself in the comments, but what is the end goal? What are you hoping for when you get on the plane? I'm sure part of you is just hoping, yeah, I'm the same guy, I'm the same person, so maybe no matter what I look like or who I am or what I am, that connection will still exist, but that imminent wall of lies is a crazy thing to voluntarily crash into. It's probably just easier to fake your death at that point. Hashtag Manny Teo. Next story. Nothing serious because I caught it quickly, but a guy claimed he was a Marine and posted a bunch of photos that he captioned, "Me in Afghanistan," and the like. They were all different sizes and a crappy resolution. A quick reverse Google image search proved that they were taken largely from articles written about military training exercises held in Nevada, and one even had the subject's name and rank, which wasn't even close to the name he'd given me. I called him on it, and he felt the way to rectify it and prove he was real was to send me a bunch of wang pics. From there it got even better. The photos were of obviously different wangs. They looked nothing alike. Another reverse image search brought up dozens of gay adult content sites. And I called him on that. And he proceeded to threaten me for disrespecting the Marine Corps. It was actually kind of hilarious how terrible he was at it. Next story. I have an excellent story of someone who has. My very good friend Ben's dad has always had an online girlfriend called Dr. Sam. She was the reason Ben's parents divorced about 12 years ago. I don't know the story of early Dr. Sam, just that she claimed to be a doctor of some kind and also had some kind of cancer. Steve, Ben's dad, sent Dr. Sam all kinds of money, enough that his wife divorced him. When those little hands-free phone headsets came out, he got one and was on the phone with her literally every second of every day. She would make him talk to her cats on the phone, and he'd be places like the grocery store meowing into a headset that no one could see. He tried to visit her many times, but every time he had his ticket squared away, her cancer would come back and she'd need emergency medical treatment, or, I crap you not, her pet tiger would bite her and she'd have to go to the hospital. Steve is a high-ranking naval officer. When he had to go to Afghanistan a few years ago, he sent his cat to live with Dr. Sam. She had to put it down immediately because he wasn't happy. Eventually, Dr. Sam claimed to have died. I wouldn't believe a word of this if Ben's mother hadn't confirmed all of it. Holy crap, that has got to be traumatic for the kid, for the wife, I guess for the guy too, but he was trying to cheat, so I don't really feel as bad. I don't know, maybe people falling in love with ChatGPT characters isn't the worst thing. Next story. Friend and I frequent dating sites. He was catfished once. Her name was Alexis McNally. She was the head RN at a hospital a half hour away, making $150,000 a year, and was in love with my friend. She was going to fly him to Vegas after 3 weeks of knowing him, and they were going to get married. He was happy as all get out, and thinking of pretty much nothing but the money and the hot pictures that she was sending him. She said she bought him all this stuff and his kids' iPads and computers, and that she had a multi-million-dollar house she was going to live in with him. He didn't think anything was odd, but I did, so I did some research. First, I called the hospital, and they said they had never heard of her. Then looked up her phone number, which the area code was from Ohio. After a while, he wised up and started calling her out on stuff. She ended up sending him a box filled with new American Eagle clothes for him, and that was pretty much the end of it. Too long didn't read. Friend got catfished, but ended up with a box full of free clothes. Hey, alright, I think so far this is the first story where someone got something out of it. Also, I don't know if American Eagle is in or not, but I'll say this, the AE Flex jeans, athletic fit, top of the line. Next story. I'll toss my story up here just to help other Redditors out and prevent future catfishing. I was about 16 at the time, 24 now, and I had just discovered the social website Vampire Freaks, VF. Judge me now if you'd like, but I liked it. Back then, Facebook hadn't become huge, and MySpace made it too difficult to find people in your area with similar interest. VF had a huge collection of gamers, cosplayers, otaku, and nerds, which is my thing. Ran into the girl that I thought was the love of my life at 16 years old, and we had the same interest. We talked on MSN voice chat numerous times and sent recent pictures to each other all the time. It was awesome. We had a great time and generally seemed to connect really well. After 3 months, I decided it was time to meet. I lived in southern New Jersey, and her in upper New York. It was a bit of a hike. I lied to my mom and told her I was going to Philly, which was only a 15-minute train ride, and set off on an adventure of epic proportion. After hopping on 2 trains and walking for 2 hours, 5 hours total, I had finally arrived at our meeting point, a cafe in her neighborhood. I was waiting in line to get a cup of coffee when suddenly a monstrous shadow that could be compared to the sun caught the corner of my eye. Chills went down my spine as I heard my name get called out. The girl who had just sent me a picture last night had gained 120 pounds and caused the ground to quake beneath her. Having little to no experience of the outside world, I panicked, turned and said the most disappointing greeting of my life. I ended up spending the rest of the day with her. I tried not to be a jerk and bring up the fact that she lied to me, but in the end she went for the kiss, and I just gave her the cheek. I probably would have dated her if she hadn't lied to me. I'm a romantic, and I feel as though beauty is on the inside, but if she could lie about something like that, what's to stop her from something even bigger? Too long didn't read, girls can be magicians with Photoshop and good camera angles. Next story. Not me, but my older brother's best friend. He had been talking to this girl online for a really long time. He was planning on driving to Texas, we live in North Georgia, to visit her. When he told her that he was going to drive over to see her, she confessed that she was actually an overweight 43-year-old lady, and he was 23 at the time. He, doesn't like to talk about it. Next story. Yep, once, I think, a fairly attractive Asian girl started messaging me in a chat room on gay.com. I am lesbian, so the gay.com chat rooms for the women weren't really known for having bots. She comes on strong and actually shows a lot of interest in me, even though I didn't really have much interest in her at first, since she was in Florida and I'm in Oklahoma. I actually start to really like her and think maybe we could really hit it off if we met. We started talking and texting pretty much 24/7. Then she tells me about how she can't date anyone locally because her dad is a marine engineer and builds multi-million-dollar yachts for famous people. I don't really believe it at first, but she starts mailing me all these fairly expensive things like clothes and flowers, gift cards, etc. to sort of prove it, even though I tell her I didn't really want them. The weird thing is, she wouldn't tell me her last name and would be very weird about it, saying if I found out I could Google it and it'll pull up her dad's yacht business and I could see how rich they really are, and she wanted to make sure that I really wanted to be with her and wasn't just in it for the money, even though she kept sending me gifts without me asking to prove her wealth. She also said she was a head hairstylist at Tony & Guy and made $700 a day in tips. Anyway, one of the gifts she sent, the company sent a receipt slip that had her last name on it. I googled it and nothing really pulled up. Even name yachts, nothing. Name yachts Florida, nothing at all came up for it. Things started to seem weird, so I called the Tony & Guy she claimed she worked at and asked if I could schedule with her. No one worked there with that name. I waited a couple of days to tell her that her name came on the receipt. When I did, she flipped the F out and said I was crazy and that she was going to stop talking to me anyway because she has cancer, and then hung up on me and disconnected the number within minutes. It was so weird. I don't know what the point of that catfish was. I'm the one who got a bunch of stuff, and I didn't even ask for any of it. Oh well, I still wear some of the stuff she got me. LOL. Next story. My best friends in high school made a MySpace page of this cute boy and started talking to me for several weeks. I started to like him and showed one of my other friends his profile picture. She then says, "Hey, I've seen that picture before." Proceeds to go on some weird goth site she visited a lot, and lo and behold, Peter's hot emo figure was there. I know, I had bad taste back then, but how did I find out Peter was my best friend? He eventually said something in one of the emails we wrote to each other only my best friend would know. Then I realized whenever I was with my best friend, Peter would never reply. He then owned up, saying he felt bad about how lonely I was and he wanted me to feel happy. By the way, that best friend was gay, so no, we did not hook up after that. Next story. I have not, but my pictures were stolen and used by a 14-year-old girl to catfish older boys. I found out, not knowing her age, and was kind of mad. Once I found out she was a minor trying to meet 20-plus-year-old guys, I was just generally concerned for her and what could have happened. Next story. My best friend has catfished several dudes. Back when MySpace was a big thing, she had very complex systems and fake profiles and photos, and she even stole some of my blogs and posted them as her own. She was significantly larger than the photos she posted. They were stolen from a classmate's profile, and she would meet the guys after months of intimate phone and email conversations, then guilt-trip them into continuing to hang out with her. She told them it was her personality that mattered. Don't be so shallow. It was some shady crap, obviously rooting from deep self-esteem issues, but luckily she grew out of it. Next story. A friend of mine was dating my cousin, and she suspected him of cheating on her, so to see if he really would be capable of such a thing, she made a fake MySpace. Yes, it was back in the day. She found pictures from the internet of regular girls, his type, and compiled together one of the girls who looked similar enough to be mistaken as being the same girl. It was honestly pretty talented of her. Every picture was of a different girl, but you would have to think that they were all the same. I have no idea how many man-hours she put into this account, but she friended my cousin and talked for a while, then asked to meet up. When my cousin said okay, my friend promptly broke up with him. It was total entrapment, but it got the truth out, so kudos to her. Next story. Only once recently. It actually helped change my view of the practice. I met a girl on OKC. Very nice. We clicked pretty quickly and talked for about a month before deciding to meet up. There were no immediate red flags in her profile, and her pictures looked legit. We agreed on a park. I'm a cheap date, what can I say? For our first meeting, I was lying back on a grassy hill when I hear a voice say my name. I look up and see someone I don't recognize at all. I was confused and asked her if I knew her. She was quiet for a second before realizing it was the girl I'd been talking to. She looked radically different from her pictures. The girl I saw in the pictures was quite pretty, very fit, looked like she took good care of herself. The girl that showed up was less so. She was much plainer looking, much more weight than the girl in the photos, and much less sure of herself now. I asked her why she'd lied, especially considering that I actually did find her real self attractive. She burst into tears and said she was so scared that people wouldn't like her that she felt like she had to do this. She had a lot of self-image problems. Her shirt sleeve slipped a couple of times and there were a lot of scars. Initially, yes, I was mad. I'm a really chill, good-natured dude. At least I try to be, and I really hate when people take advantage of that. We talked for a little while, and she admitted she was terrified of people and their reaction to how she looked, and that this approach helped her get past that. I explained that lying about it wasn't going to help anything. We actually had a pretty good conversation, and kept in touch after that, but she stopped responding to pretty much everything about 2 months later. She stopped answering her phone, and the text dropped off. I hope she's alright, and that she stopped catfishing people, of course. It was a shame because I did actually find her attractive, and she wasn't a horrendous human being, but I can't start a relationship on that big of a lie. After that, I've started looking at catfishers with a little more empathy. A lot of them are people who have social issues and don't mean to be malicious or to hurt people. That doesn't make it more acceptable, but it's easier to understand. Yeah, it really is super interesting for sure. And yes, of course, there's empathy because you don't want anyone to feel like that or feel like they have to resort to that. That's the only way that they feel they can be accepted is to pretend to be somebody else, while also condemning the very nature of lying in the first place. It's just a very spooky sort of situation. I think that's why a lot of people I know try to FaceTime before the meetup in the DM and talking stage. But, I mean, nowadays with deepfakes and AI and filters and whatnot, it's only become easier to pretend to be somebody else. There's plenty of catfish in the sea, as it were. Next story. Started chatting with a girl on a BBS in the early 90s. This moved to the internet when that became more popular. Finally decided to meet after 4 years. From the photos of her I had seen, I was looking for a skinny white girl. She turned out to be an overweight Asian girl. She brought 4 friends with her to meet me as well, which was a bit awkward. I ended up sneaking out of the bar we had arranged to meet at after about 30 minutes as I was really embarrassed, and her friends were asking me if I was still interested in her. Her personality was still the same and all the stories she had told were hers, but she was afraid I wouldn't be interested if I knew what she looked like. I still speak to her every couple of months now, even 20 years later. Next story. Bear with me, this is kind of long. I met this young man named Shane on the Neopets when I was 13. My best friend was 16 and so was Shane. He lived in Holland and we would chat daily. I told my mom about our international friend and she reminded me that you never know who you're talking to on the internet. I got freaked out and wouldn't talk to Shane for a couple of months while my best friend would still talk to him daily. The strange thing was, Shane shared an email address with his sister, Rowena, and we had only ever seen one picture of Shane. Whatever, not many people back then had digital cameras or video cameras, and my best friend fell madly in love with Shane, and like I said, talked to him daily. They talked about meeting up, and something would always get in the way, even when my friend was in Holland with her family. We also found the same picture of Shane on Vampire Freaks, which was weird because it was under a different name. After years of talking, like 4 freaking years, my best friend received an email from her lover. He told her there was something he needed to tell her and was just so embarrassed about it, but he had been hiding something for quite some time, and to look for an email to her about it. She responded and waited for the email for months. It never came. She never heard from Shane again. She sent emails and instant messages to Shane, but he never responded. She started digging, and she found Shane's sister's, Rowena's, social media site. On it were all the photos and drawings Shane had been sending her for years, claiming that they were his. Pictures of Shane's new shoes, of a drawing he had made for my best friend, all of Shane's favorite bands, etc. My best friend then realized he had not fallen in love with Shane, but a girl from Holland named Rowena. It's been 4 years since she's spoken to Shane, and the first year after they stopped talking, she sent Rowena an email letting her know that she knows that Shane never existed. I know deep down she still wants answers, but I'm pretty sure she'll never get them. Too long didn't read, my best friend and I start talking to a guy named Shane. My best friend falls in love with him and finds out it's really a girl named Rowena. Next story. Okay, edit or disclaimer or what have you. This is a quick retelling of my life when I was a lonely 15-year-old girl. My behavior and thoughts in this story are not an accurate representation of who I am now. At the time, we were all caught up in being the popular kids online because we couldn't find a way to connect with the other kids we knew in high school and real life. I was not attractive or charming in high school and bad at picking up social cues. I was somehow able to satisfy my need for friendship on the internet in a vain and shallow way. This is a cringy period of my life. I just wanted to share my story. Dated what I thought was a cool, cute Asian guy for maybe 3 months online. He was openly gay and bisexual when I met him, and we decided later to become a couple. He was really popular in the forums we posted on. I felt proud and lucky. We would talk on the phone literally from dusk to dawn. My parents were concerned about my hermitness. I would never go out, never have a social life. Just calling him when I woke up, starting on the phone until I went to sleep. It was ridiculous. There was sometimes huge drama in the forum group, especially after we went public. Girls would say and write horrible things about me and my body and how I didn't deserve him because of my looks and my skin color. One of these girls confessed to him she cut a piece of her girlfriend's skin off and ate it. Ugh. His voice was high-pitched, and I was so young and stupid and really stupid and ignorant. And I just figured gay Asian, and he looked very, very feminine. So in my mind, this rationalized his female voice. I no longer saw it as a red flag. I let my friends on my sports team in real life talk to him, and they all laughed at him, saying his voice is so girly, even though other people were convinced this person's voice is from a woman. I was in denial. One day I called his house, and his aunt, who is known for her temper, picked up and didn't say hello or who was calling, only she's outside cleaning with her brother, and hung up on me. I confronted him, and he was able to twist the situation around, so I felt guilty for not trusting him. I ended up crying and apologizing for all of my doubts. Well, like I said, this forum group was catty as F, and someone started a gossip blog about the more popular members, and it felt like Nancy Grace was personally investigating my online love life. They found more pictures of the person I thought. Turns out he was using pictures of a contestant from New Zealand Idol or some crap. They wrote paragraphs, quoting his party history, breaking down all his conflicting backstory. For example, he lied about his home country, his family members, his school, etc. Turns out my boyfriend was actually a chubby white girl. She confessed to me that she was actually lesbian, but liked to pretend to be a gay man online, and engage in gay roleplay. A lot of other fakes and catfish in the forums were found out too, and half of them were lesbians pretending to be gay dudes to seduce girls. Like, what the F? Revised my post from 8 a.m. to please Redditors. Have I even come that far from seeking the approval of strangers on the internet? Next story. Reposting from a similar thread. Too long didn't read. When I was 15 or 16, I got into a relationship with my clan leader on RuneScape, who was reasonably attractive, though not overly so to imply a fake. Later proved it was a guy. Weirdest thing about it was that she had a fiancé for a while named after himself. I guess he wanted to roleplay his fantasy woman. You guys can judge me all you want for this. All I'll say is that I was young, naive, and you know what? Happy. This happened around 10 years ago, when I was in high school. I was pretty big into RuneScape, as were most of my friends at the time. I joined up with one of the most prominent clans at the time, led by a female lady person, Erica. Rose through the ranks, eventually becoming a co-leader. That night, Erica admitted she wanted to date me in the game. I was skeptical at first because she supposedly had a fiancé. She claimed he had no issues with her doing it. This wasn't her first time, as it wasn't real. I'll be honest, I was lonely. I still have a problem where one of the most attractive things in a female is her interest in me. So I started to date her. She lived several states away, so it was purely online with no chance of us actually meeting. We got pretty close. I fell in love. We ended up married in the game. There was a fair amount of cybering. After a while, she finally got married. At that point, I didn't feel comfortable being with her. Admittedly, it was a ploy to try and get her to leave him for me. Like I said, young and naive. In any case, we broke up for a while and didn't speak much. We started talking again after a while, and she told me she had gotten divorced and was now dating some girl. So we started dating again. I don't recall why anymore, but we eventually broke up again, and I got out of RuneScape for a while. God, MMOs are so addictive, so I didn't have much reason to talk to her. Now, up until here, I'm just an idiot, and she's, as we know it, the creepy one. However, this is where I get a little creepy. Call it boredom, call it love, call it being a stalker, whatever you call it. I started looking for her online. Started looking for her on MySpace or any other site using her Yahoo email. Couldn't find anything. Don't ask me why, but at some point she had contacted me from her fiance's email address, so I decided to check him out and see what was up with him. He did have a profile, so I was reading through it. I believe he was somewhere between 23 to 27 at the time. I noticed some things in his profile that were eerily similar to Erica's life. It was just enough to make me suspicious that maybe she wasn't who she said she was. I don't remember how much more checking around I did, but I do recall looking up marriage records for her state and not finding anything. I know that's some irrefutable evidence right there, some hardcore CSI crap. But anyway, I had enough evidence in my mind and took it to a mutual friend. We confronted Erica about it, taking into the conversation a letter I had prepared detailing my investigation that I planned to post on the forums to out her or him. He admitted it was true. He agreed to stop the whole thing if we agreed not to turn it into anyone. I really didn't want to turn it in, both because I didn't know how and because I didn't want my life effed up because of it. I was also somewhat satisfied that I had won, so we decided to let it go. Haven't seen or heard anything about it, her, him since, as one would expect, as I cut all ties and he or she stopped playing RuneScape as far as I know. I know I didn't handle any of it well, and I know it's my fault if he went on to hurt anyone, but then I didn't and don't think he would. Think of this what you will, but that's the whole story. Next story. This will be buried, but a throwaway anyway because I've never told this to anyone in my life and would love to keep it that way. Way back in the day of AIM chat rooms being all the rage, I loved going in and making random new friends when I wasn't busy being a super cool 8th grader. Anyway, I met a guy who was a year older than I was, and he lived in New York, not too far from me. We talked, and eventually we started dating. This continued for years, literally years. 5 of them, all through high school. I was too shy and awkward and insecure to talk to guys and thought no one would ever like me, and I just had this ridiculous online relationship. When it came time for college, we broke up. I started to date actual people, but I still occasionally talked to this guy. 3 years ago, that old flame came back. We were chatting one night like it was 2005, and he told me he had something to tell me. It took hours and hours to get it out of him, but in the end, he sent me an email. He was a she. Naturally, I freaked the F out, but we kept talking, and she was actually literally just the girl version of the guy I thought she was. I had come out of the closet as bisexual a few years prior, and I started to date this girl I thought was a guy for almost a decade. I loved her, just the same. Too long didn't read. Got catfished, but had some lesbian intimacy. Next story. A girl messaged me on a dating website. She looked okay in her pics, and I hadn't been on a date in months. So I figured, why not? I invited her to Starbucks. Her profile said she was 5'4", about average body type, matched the picture, and was a redhead. I was okay with all of this. I go to Starbucks that weekend to meet her. Notice she's not outside. So I go inside to see if I find her. I step inside and look around. The Starbucks was small, but all the tables were full. Then the girl stands up as she recognized me and approached me. The girl was a full 6 feet tall and towered over me. At this point, I was a little intimidated because that's not the 5'4" I expected. I also started to notice that she looked a little different from her pictures and realized she used a picture of a similar looking redhead for her own. I then look around me and see the entire Starbucks customers and staff are watching us. It's here I realized this is why she waited inside. If we were surrounded by a bunch of people, she thought I wouldn't make a scene or just flat out walk out on her. It was literally my first instinct. Completely surprised and caught off guard, she asked if I wanted to buy a drink and meet her outside. Crap. She thought this through. I grabbed a drink and sat down with her. Almost immediately, she just starts talking and tells me she's the last one of her friends who isn't married and doesn't have kids. I look over at her with my bugged out eyes hidden behind my shades, and I notice she's trying to smile, but there's something off. She had Bell palsy. Girl also made it obvious to the Starbucks audience, so again, if I walked out on her instantly, I would look like an absolute a-hole, or so she would hope. She then starts to tell me how she literally almost bought the same condo I did just before me. Hey, I never told her I lived there, nor that I was the one who ended up buying it, so that was creepy as F. And I told her that she didn't match her profile. She said it was her info. Sure. I tell her I have to run, and she walks with me as I'm on the way to her car. She asked me if I would be interested in a second date. Well, I had no need to be honest with her. Sure, I'll check my schedule and email you on the site. Or you could text me. Yeah, I'll text you instead. There was no effing way on Buddha's fat belly I was going to text her and let her have my number. I walked into another building and made sure she left before I got in my car and never talked to her again. Next story. I work as head of IT security for a large insurance company. One of the people I work with was recently scammed this way over $250,000. Saddest thing I ever saw. She's essentially screwed. 56 years old, and she got nothing. I did what I could to give her advice about her next steps, but couldn't convince her to tell her family. She's so embarrassed. Next story. Not me, but my mom. Twice. The first time, the guy said he worked for an oil drilling company and was off in the middle of an ocean on an oil platform. Then he told my mom that his daughter was in some dancing competition in another country, and she had fallen and broken her leg, and he couldn't send her any money for the medical bills, and that he needed my mom to send thousands of dollars to some account that he would pay her back 3 times over when he came back into the country, and then he would basically take her away to paradise and she would live in happiness forever. I told her that this was obviously bullcrap. He was trying to rip her off. She wouldn't believe me or any of our family or her friends, even though every single person we know told her the same thing. She insisted that we all wanted her to be unhappy and that she was going to abandon us all and go live with him in paradise as soon as he came back into the country. The good news was, she didn't have a penny to give him, much less thousands of dollars. She tried to explain that to him, but he kept hounding her about it. So I took it upon myself to go to one of those websites where they try and catch these sorts of people, and after telling them the info, they basically confirmed that this same guy has been using this same information to try and lure women for months, and that he is definitely a con artist. I tried to explain this to my mother, but she wouldn't listen. Then I myself went and sent him an anonymous and very threatening email, telling him that he had better confess to everything to every woman he is trying to rip off, or I would reveal all of his personal information to the police, and that I was an elite hacker and I knew every single thing about him. Obviously, this was a bluff, but he fell for it, and I know that at least my mother received an email from him confessing everything. I didn't have to actually send any info to the police, though, as the website I spoke of before said that they already had all sorts of info on the guy and would take care of it. The second time, the guy claimed to live a few hours away from where we lived, but he was out of town. Eventually, of course, he says he needs money because his house is going to be foreclosed on and he's just shy of being able to pay his mortgage by a couple $1,000s. I tell my mom once again that this is obviously bullcrap. She's a little more inclined to believe me this time, but she wanted to be sure because she thought this guy seemed legit on some level. So we got a friend of ours to come over, who is a complete genius, by the way, and he literally manages to pull up all sorts of information about the sender of these emails, the phone number he gave us, the fake address he gave us, and to top it all off, finds a website where people trade poetry and the like, specifically for the purpose of trying to seduce women and men to rip them off. And of course, most of his messages are ripped straight off this website. So I reported this guy to the site from before, and then we threatened to call the police if he ever contacted us again, and he never did. Abysmal behavior by this guy. Look, if you're gonna be a catfish, if you're gonna be a liar, if you're gonna be a con artist, if you're gonna be a thief, don't be a plagiarist too. Plagiarist? Don't plagiarize. But for real, I'm glad that she got out of that mostly unscathed. I mean, time and energy, of course, sucks, but there are some many horror stories, like that previous one, about people just losing tons of money to people. Next story. This didn't happen while online dating, but it is a classic catfish, I feel. I got a message from a friend of mine who's a pretty well-known TV writer. He had tons of followers on Twitter, but there was this one family in particular that commented and replied on everything he did. Had their own conversations and lives going on, but he had a funny feeling about it. This guy's in the US, and I'm from Australia, where this family was from, so he asked me to look into it. There were 5 or 6 women in this family, a couple of older women who were sisters and their daughters. Most of these had other people attached, husbands or children or friends, and they all talked to each other about the TV show and the characters and sent him questions. Some of them had a bit of drama in their lives. One woman was a cancer survivor. Another had an autistic son. Pretty innocent when I looked into it. No one under those names existed as far as I could find. And a quick Tine Eyes search showed that all their pictures were from Google searches. Blonde model, pretty blonde girl, Australian beach girl, and things like that. Some of them were taken randomly from other profiles for consistency, I guess. But then you had the obvious ones with watermarks and whatnot. This continued for a couple of weeks without much happening and without us finding out anything new. We weren't sure the motivation, other than just making life a bit more interesting, like the Catfish movie. And then, bang, one of the young pretty daughters got in a car by accident, put in a coma. The whole family was abuzz with talk. Of course, my writer friend offers his support and asks if there's anything he can do. They give an address of the hospital and ask for some autographed photos from his show and maybe a couple of scripts if I remember. Ah, there it is. And at this point, they start kind of soliciting other well-known writers, actors, and athletes for help and sympathy. From the comments I read, they got a whole bunch of stuff sent to them. Signed books, photos, autographs, flowers, and more. The girl woke up for an hour or something one day and was very impressed and thankful for all the gifts that they were arriving. At this point, I was about to travel interstate. I had called the hospital and the girl in there for a coma didn't exist on their records. Of course. And from the information they'd given him, we figured out the actual Catfish's work. It was at the hospital and home address. I was flying to their state the next day, and on a day off, I was planning to stop by their place with some flowers or something just to see what would happen. Anyway, the day I fly out, they just fall off the face of the planet. After all the prayers and goodwill sent out by other Twitter people, they got a lot of attention, retweets and whatnot, they disappeared. It started with a message of, "Oh my gosh, she died," or something along those lines, and then the account started to get deleted, all in one day. So it ended there. I didn't go to their house. It felt dumb when I was thinking about it. It's funny how you can get an idea of who the person is behind all these personalities they've built. She was a 40-something woman, from what I could, a rocky marriage, maybe not as pretty as she used to be. I don't think she had kids, worked a crappy non-stop job at a hospital in Sydney's outer suburbs. So it was something of an escape. Very Catholic. I don't think she deleted the characters because she thought someone might catch her. She had no idea I was involved at all, or that we'd figured out her address and that kind of thing. I think she just had a change of heart and realized it wasn't a particularly good thing to do. No harm came out of just having these characters talking and interacting with people, but the goodies arriving on her doorstep probably set her straight. This probably happened a couple of years ago now. I have a doc on my old hard drive with a timeline and background on all the characters and what happened when I had it laid out. My writer friend didn't mind. I think he enjoyed following the story and seeing how it developed. I think he felt a pang of not pity so much, but maybe sympathy for a fellow storyteller, so he doesn't mind he sent off all that stuff. Too long didn't read. Australian woman creates an entire fake family on Twitter to talk to TV personalities. I get sent to investigate, and the whole thing goes on a bit of a wild ride. Next story. Once led me to believe she was my age, but was clearly underage. Dated her for 2 years until I ended it very abruptly. We started talking and we got to know one another. She said she was 17, my age, when we met, and I believed her. Her pictures backed that up as well, and she didn't appear to be any younger than what she said. Eventually, we started Skyping and video chatting. We'd had a blast and talk and whatnot. A year passes, and I tell her I'ma go to England and meet her. We planned a date and everything. That date approaches very fast, and I'm on a plane headed to God knows where, and I'm scared as crap. I arrive, and her dad picks me up and drives me to their house. We get there, and I meet her, and all is good. However, when I meet her older sister, actually my age, her sister makes a remark along the lines of, "I can't believe my sister is dating someone 3 years older than her," to which I nearly spit my drink out of my mouth. I asked her what she meant, and she told me she's 15. And I told her she's joking because the girl told me she's 19. Sister laughed at me, and the girl I came to meet overheard the conversations and came out bawling her eyes out saying she's sorry and yada yada yada. Needless to say, the next day I told her we weren't doing this anymore. After that, I had another friend I knew come pick me up, to which I spent the remainder of my week in England playing League, drinking alcohol, and getting the grand tour of England. He still makes fun of me for letting me get wrapped up in that mess. I kept in touch with her up until a few months ago. Last I knew, she ended up attempting self-unaliving and now does drugs like they are candy, and is quite the child for her parents. Next story. Once, it was actually my first online date ever. I ended up talking to a girl who seemed pretty cute. She was a little overweight, but not too much. She told me she liked the same music I did and that she liked video games like Portal. Ooh, fun. And she also told me she was 22. Everything seems great, so we arranged to meet up, as she's 2 hours away. I make the drive, get to town that she lives in, and wait patiently at the local Starbucks. That's when she comes up, and she's a good 100 pounds heavier than she looked in her photos. Definitely not a little extra. This was way more extra. Whatever, fine, maybe things will go better from here. Sadly, not a chance. In conversing with her, it's clear that she in fact did not like video games, and she was just bullcrapping about her music tastes. She listened to nothing but gangsta rap the entire date, and we took her car. And when asked about other music, she seemed outright clueless. Furthermore, she kept remaining adamant that I make a decision on wanting to be in a committed relationship by the end of the date. Then, towards the end of the date, she revealed that she was, in fact, a few days past 18, and not 22 as she had said before, and she had just lost her virginity 2 days prior. That's when it very clearly went into the realm of nope, 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 and I ended the date and left. 2 days later, she messages me again, telling me she got another guy, and that it just wouldn't work out between us. Next story. A while after me and my ex of 2 years split up, I flew to Melbourne to meet with the girl I had been talking with for a month or two. My boss paid me to go down for some strange reason, and he gets in these weird moods. Right now I'm undoing 2 years of work. Anyway, I arrived to discover that the girl was in fact 15. Me being 20, this was a big nope. The friendship connection was there, but absolutely zero interest in pursuing a relationship or any intimacy. First night, we went out to a party, and I egged her on to try and get with a guy she was interested in to get me off her radar. They got together, whatever, and came back to her house and stayed for the few days I was there. I stayed at her place with her parents and her group of random friends and a mix of guys and girls. I cooked them some breakfast and I slept on the floor. Ended up working out well for me anyway, as Melbourne Comedy Festival was on, so I just went to it by myself and had a blast taking in the sights and sounds of Melbourne. Didn't end up being awkward, thank God. Basically just had a new little sister and an adopted family to take care of for a few days with a free place to stay. Don't give up on online dating, however, as a few months after that I met the effing girl of my dreams. Flew up to Brisbane to meet her, and we've been madly in love for the past year. She 100% completes me and is a fantastic nerdy woman just a year older than me. Next story. I was catfished before the days of the internet. I'm a girl, but this boy in school did an uncanny impression of my voice, prepubescent, and he used to call some of the other boys in school pretending to be me, having hour-long conversations. Guys would come up to me at school and ask me about something referencing a conversation I didn't have, and it took me a few days to catch on. No idea why this kid did it. Bonus, his dad was a minister in our town. Edit. Someone catfished with my voice. Next story. Yes, for the better. I was dating this girl in my guild back in WoW, and she listed herself as a model from New York who didn't work much because she made decent money. It explained why she was always on as much as we were. Anyhow, one night my two roommates and her were playing and talking on Ventrilo while drinking and drunk, and I told her she should fly to Portland and get drunk with us, since she had the money. She replied okay, then asked to talk to me in another vent channel because she needed to tell me something. We left channels. She explained that she was not who she said she was and that the picture of our members' website was not her. At this point, I am assuming the absolute worst, and I find out that she's Shannon Doherty. Too long didn't read? Catfish turned out to be Shannon Doherty. Next story. This post is a little old now, but I remember being catfished before it was a thing. I spent a lot of time on the internet when I was still a relatively new concept. I had made a group of friends that were girls in an AOL chat room. We'd log in around the same time, chat for a few hours, and then log off. Well, one of the girls decided that it would be fun if they made an alternate persona to mess with me. They made a boy named Josh and introduced me to him as Kate's friend from school. We talked constantly from then on and out. No cell phone, so there was no texting, and I was too shy for phone calls. So for 2 years, from age 12 to 14 at this point, I considered myself in love with Josh. I was sent pictures from some random MySpace of a boy I obviously would never be able to trace, and I was young and naive, so I believed every moment of it. Josh got diagnosed with cancer about 2 years into my first time in love. It was quick moving. Sometimes I wouldn't hear from him for days during treatment. Sometimes Kate would tell me what was going on. I saved my allowance and did extra chores to send Josh flowers when I could, and I considered myself an advocate for cancer research and volunteered for the cancer center and cried nightly thinking my first love was dying. About 6 months into this aggressive cancer diagnosis, I don't hear from Josh for a week. Some of the other girls are online, but none have talked to Kate either. So one day, Kate logs on. She tells me Josh is dead. She was so sorry. Everyone at her school was devastated. My world stopped. My first love was gone. I told the girls I needed some time. I would be away for a while. I never logged back into that AOL chat room again. About 4 years later, I get a message from a girl on Facebook. I have no idea who she is. She remembered my name, though, and told me that she had fabricated the entire thing because she was bored and wanted to see what would happen. She apologized for hurting me, but she didn't know an out at the time and hoped I was doing well. I don't believe anyone on the internet is who they say they are anymore. Oh, that one was so sad. This poor little 12-year-old girl is one being lied to, but the money, the effort, the time, the flowers, and her friends took advantage of her and broke her heart. I mean, that's kind of gotta mess you up for a while. I don't think even them confessing it's gonna fix the damage. Josh was fake, but your friends were even faker. I hope you are feeling oh so phenomenal now. Next story. Never catfished, but I would say that 70 to 80% of the time the pictures were outdated by at least 5 years and 15 pounds, and frequently by 10 years and 40 pounds. Interestingly, I met my current partner online and he is much better looking at the picture he posted. I don't know if I would even recognize him from that pic, even though it was updated at the time. Ironically, I might never have contacted him if he put an accurate picture because A, that one was a little goofy, which I liked, and B, I might have been too intimidated. Next story. Not exactly catfish, but a lot of girls like to lie about their weight. Sometimes it's easy to tell them from their pictures and shots that conveniently don't include parts of their bodies, etc. But sometimes they'll use old or flattering pics and you can tell that they're a little thick when you meet them. They turn out to be a lot bigger than they let on. When I was on the online dating scene, I would just have a nice date with them and not be a jerk about it. But I recall one time I met this girl at a bar we both liked. Not only did she turn out to be a lot bigger than she looked on her profile, but it turns out I actually had seen her around a lot before and just didn't recognize her because she looked so much thinner on her profile. We had a nice evening at the bar, a couple of drinks back to her place, a movie, some nice casual intimacy, but that was the end of it. Yeah, that one's tough though. I mean, everybody wants to use the best pictures of themselves and put their best foot forward. At least it's a picture of you, and you don't know how long they've had the dating profile in the first place, so it's just, I don't know. I guess it depends on the person. Guys, leave your opinion down below in the comments. I can't see myself really caring about if somebody showed up 25 pounds heavier. Next story. So I have a somewhat different story. Browsing gone wild one day, I had my breath completely and totally taken away. I laid eyes on what could only be described as my dream woman. I tossed out a feeble PM, expecting to be buried in a mountain of similar attempts following hundreds of upvotes and comments. Much to my surprise, I received one, and then another, until it became a deep and genuine conversation. Then, after a handful of submissions, the account was gone. I was almost sure she was a faker. She was physically flawless and found everything I said funny and witty and or meaningful. In fact, I became obsessed with proving to myself that she was, that even if the pictures were real, they came from someone else. I spent days scouring her post history for clues, Googling the username and its various permutations, expecting to land on something. Finally, I got my break, a social media account, which led to another, and a Facebook with geographical information that matched the purported posters. In the moments before that page loaded, I prepared myself for what I knew to be the case, wildly different pictures and a wildly different person. Except that wasn't the case. I'd found her, my dream woman. She was a real person with real hopes and real dreams and real interests, such as the ones we'd talked about. I sent her a sheepish message indicating who I was and that I'd found her, and that I'd leave her alone from that moment on if she preferred. Much to my even greater surprise, she didn't blink. We restarted our conversation virtually from the same place. Over the course of a year, we talked on the phone, swapped pictures. Eventually, I made arrangements to meet with a person I'd never seen in person, but whom was clear I had feelings for, and her for me. Only one issue. She lived across the ocean. However, by then I'd thrown all reason out the window. I plunked down the money, boarded a plane, booked a hotel, and made that trip. We agreed to meet in a nice, busy pub. Nothing seedy, plenty of escape routes for both of us. And although I'd expected reality to bow to the fantastical photos I'd seen, when she walked in, I lost my breath again. She was even more remarkable in person. It took about an hour and a half. We drank a little, one on each side, but that was enough. Our chemistry was obvious, and so were the emotions brewing inside each other. When I called her out on having shaky hands, she shrugged and said that it wasn't her fault. She was madly attracted to me, and we kissed. Then again, and ended up wading out into the street, where we took advantage of every semi-dark corner before settling onto a park bench. As night fully arrived and the temperature dropped, I suggested we go back to my hotel. She stayed for the night, and the morning, and the entire next day. All told, we were together for most of what I still now look back on as an incredibly surreal week. It wasn't just for the relations. In each other we found what the other had always been looking for. We are mired in an argument right now, but it's the kind of things couples absorb and grow from. I'm moving to her country next month, and I hope to start a life with her. all because I messaged my dream woman on Gone Wild and sought to convince myself that she was a catfish. Next story. Made a throwaway just for this. This is a story about two people catfishing each other. Back when I was 11 and 12, I was really into RuneScape. As a point of reference, Slayer and trapping hadn't been made skills yet. I got into it just before it picked up a lot of momentum, so I was fairly well known in the game and often ran away from reality with it. Also, me and a couple of friends of mine ran a big scam rig, if it could really be called that. The "give me your items and you can be in our guild," or "follow me to this secluded spot and I won't kill you, promise," sort of variety. So one day when pulling one of these scams successfully and making a fairly big payoff, full black G, I ran away to sell my prize when I was messaged saying, "give my sister back her stuff." So my 12-year-old brain was so amused at the idea that there was a girl on my favorite game that I actually did give her back her stuff, and then I apologized and bought her some more stuff. Then we got to talking. We exchanged AIM addresses and talked some more. Through these chats, we established that we were both 18 years old and were totally popular. Then we decided to date, and this is where things start to get a little blurry. The relationship started as a standard 12-year-old AIM relationship, but years started to go by and we couldn't keep up with our lies, so we just started to become more and more ridiculous. She would go partying, and when she would just really log off and go play some other game, and I would go drinking, when I would really just go call a friend and talk to them for an hour. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. Things started to become pretty insane. She started to have imaginary cousins, half-brothers, stepmothers that were on drugs, strippers that lived near me, and I started to have depression issues because college was too much for me and I have no idea what I'm doing. And this relationship became more and more toxic for about 3 years. After 3 years, we both came clean. Both of us were lying out of our butts, and we had no idea why at this point. We were now actually 15 or 16, and I had spent the hardest part of my life thus far with her. I had been dealing with a lot of weight issues as a kid, and it got really bad around that time, leading to my subsequent addiction to RuneScape, and my failing through middle school and parts of high school, and she really did help me through it when we weren't lying to each other. Our relationship started to become normal, and once the lies went away, things became fairly intense. We thought we loved each other, which made the next part even harder. I hadn't heard from her for about 3 days, and with our incessant chatting, this was very strange. That's when she sent my friend an email from a throwaway account, which he read first, and then passed to me on his cell phone. The email read basically, "I'm sorry, I love you. We can't be together. Goodbye now." And she deleted pretty much everything after a solid 4 years. Her MySpace was gone, her phone number changed, her AIM deleted, her RuneScape account completely dropped, and all her emails gone. I was floored. I had no idea what to do. I searched for about another year, assuming that eventually she'd come back to me, that maybe I wasn't good enough somehow, and I ended up losing 70 pounds over the course of that summer after she left me. I gave up RuneScape. I got into social crowd of my school and made a lot of new friends for once, but once I started dating people in real life, I just couldn't shake that feeling that she left me. Fast forward another 2 years, and on a whim, after a breakup, I feel a bit lonely. And I searched through the now popular Facebook for her, and there she is. So I go back to basics. I make a profile with a picture of some random chump I find on Google image search by looking up hot guys or something, and she accepts it. I set my location near her and we chat for a while, and I get her number. I call her and she recognizes me instantly and tries to hang up. I ask her why she did it. She answers that our relationship was ruining her life. She was barely going outside anymore, that she kept thinking there would be a day she would move to the city I lived and we could eventually be together. But she realized it was just an endless pipe dream. The conversation was every bit of closure I had wanted in the last 2 years, and she told me that she still loved me the way I did her, that just like her, I had kept her as a sort of bar of what every partner should live up to, that she kept me, and we still thought that what if this had continued? In a futile effort, I wondered if we could make it work. We were 18, maybe we could be together by some means, but we both realized it was impossible. Distance got the better of us in the end. Both of us are now 21, and she still calls me from time to time when she ends a relationship or needs some advice, but it's clear the flame has not been tended to in years, and it's dead. That chapter in our lives is done now. Wow, what a beautiful one to end on, huh? Just a couple little troublemaking 12-year-olds. Definitely left each other with a little bit of lasting damage, but kind of, poetic that you guys found friendship through there. That is definitely not the sort of feel-good ending, look what can happen when you catfish people story we're trying to tell, but just an overall serendipitous moment, I guess. Am I using that word right? But anyways, guys, that concludes our stories of catfishing and victims and the tales of dating that are oh so gross and uncomfortable that many of us have to deal with on the time to time. These were fun. These were interesting. Some were sad. Some actually ended up pretty good. But if you guys have any shocking stories that you would like to leave, feel free to write them down below in the comments and we'll continue this fun festivity of telling stories. And as always, thanks for hanging out with me and we will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.